So if you've been learning more about this concept of paying off your mortgage faster using a HELOC, then you're probably also learning more about a type of a HELOC called a First Lien Position HELOC, or also known as an all-in-one loan. The First Lien HELOC is essentially replacing your entire mortgage, whereas your entire mortgage is paid off using a HELOC, and the only loan that you have on your home is essentially just the HELOC. But as someone who's been teaching this concept, the accelerated payoff concept, for almost a decade, I'm here to tell you that the First Lien HELOC might not be the best in terms of if you're trying to save money and time. In fact, a First Lien Position HELOC or an all-in loan could actually cost you even more money compared to an alternative way of using a second lien position HELOC instead. So here in this video, I'm gonna go and unpack what are the differences in terms of saving money and time when comparing a first lien position HELOC, an all-in loan, versus a second lien position HELOC given the same parameter. And also talk about when would you want to use a first lien HELOC, when could it be more beneficial over just the second lien position HELOC. By the way, my name is Sam Kwak, one half of the Kwak Brothers, certified financial education instructor. And just like what I mentioned earlier, I've been teaching this concept for almost a decade, the accelerated payoff strategy, where we use a line of credit to pay off our mortgage faster. Now, you may have heard it as velocity banking or mortgage velocification. Whatever name was used to describe the strategy, here in the Kwak Brothers and Accelerated Strategies, we like to call it accelerated payoff. So by the end of this video, I guarantee that you'll have a deeper understanding and awareness as to the pros and cons when it comes to the first lien HELOC or the all-in-one loan when it comes to comparing it with the second lien position HELOC. So first thing first, let's do a side-by-side comparison using exact same scenario and parameters, and let's compare what the cost and time savings look like when it comes to the first lien versus the second lien position HELOC. All right, so I've shared my screen to show you a calculator that we've developed, and we've been using this for years to help us estimate the time savings and the money savings when using the accelerated payoff strategy. Now, first thing first, we're gonna go and calculate the first lien position HELOC scenario using the following parameter. Let's say our original balance for the mortgage is $300,000, current debt balance of $279,000, interest rate of 4.25%, 30-year amortization, which gives us a P&I payment of $1,475.82. Okay, we're gonna go and skip the consumer debt section because we're gonna keep this simple as possible, just comparing apples to apples when it comes to our mortgage. Next, we're gonna set the start date to, let's say, January 1st of 2025 to make things really simple as possible. And then next, our net monthly income of $10,000, living expenses of $5,000, not including our monthly P&I payment. So we have a cash flow of $3,524, and that is because we're taking our income minus our living expenses, and then ultimately subtracting our P&I payment on the mortgage as well. From there, when it comes to our line of credit information, we're gonna go in and match the exact same balance on our mortgage of $279,000 as the line of credit that we're gonna use. Now, what we're trying to emulate here is that we're essentially getting a first lien position HELOC to completely replace our current mortgage balance, whereby the first lien position HELOC now has a $279,000. We didn't incur more debt. It's the exact same balance, but just a different type of a loan. And I've set 6.5% for the interest rate on the first lien position HELOC. And that seems to be the average, kind of the going rate right now for the first lien. It could be increased or decreased depending on the time when you watch this video. Now, right at the gate, you might notice that the interest rate is higher on the line of credit when compared to the interest rate on the mortgage. Now, you might be thinking, well, that right there is the bad decision. Well, not quite. You're still going to save money, but in reality, had you just made extra payments to the existing mortgage on that 4.25%, you might actually come out ahead. And that's a separate video that we'll have for another day. In fact, we already have some videos here in our YouTube channel comparing extra payment versus using a HELOC. Now, I personally have done thousands of these scenarios and calculations, and I can already tell that you might as well just go with some extra payments on the existing mortgage. That might actually fare better. But just for the sake of reference or comparison, when it comes to the first lien versus second lien question, we're gonna continue on. So down below, the estimated payoff result is that we're gonna pay this off in approximately on June 16 of 2030. Not bad. Pay this off in about 5.5 years. We're gonna save approximately $128,441.30 of interest. So not bad. And again, the interest rate really wasn't the question at this point. It's more so, what are we doing with our cash flow is what the conversation is about. Now, when we compare that result to a second lien position HELOC, it's going to look drastically different. So let me show you what the second lien position HELOC scenario looks like. Again, the same exact parameters, $300,000 original mortgage, $279,000 of current debt balance, 4.25% interest rate, $1,475. Everything is pretty much the same in terms of the mortgage, the income, the cash flow. The difference is going to be the new line of credit information. So we're going to actually make this smaller because with a second lien position HELOC, we're taking a smaller chunk of our HELOC and making a principal payment towards the mortgage. And then I'm actually going to make the interest rate even higher at 7% on the second lien position, because the interest rate on the second lien HELOC tends to be higher than your typical first lien mortgage or HELOC. So 7% interest rate on the $10,000 draw for the HELOC. Let's see what our potential results look like. So right out of the gate, we're going to pay this off approximately on February 16, 2030. That represents about 5.1 years. So when we compare that to the first lien position, you can already see that the second lien HELOC will allow us to pay off the mortgage even sooner. So we have June 16, 2030 versus February 16 of 2030. So that's approximately 4 months of difference when it comes to time savings as well on the second lien. But take a look at this. On a money save, on the interest side, we would approximately save $150,649.88 on the second lien scenario, versus back to the first lien, we're only saving $128,441. So there's approximately, again, about $32,000 of interest saving difference when it comes to the second lien versus the first lien. So in this scenario, the second lien is going to fare better when it comes to both time savings and the interest cost savings. Now, you might be wondering, why is that the case? Even though the interest rate on the HELOC, the second lien position HELOC, might be higher than the first lien position HELOC. Well, it has to do with the fact that on the first lien position HELOC, you have a larger balance on the first lien HELOC accruing interest for a longer period of time. In other words, a more easier way to say this is that it's spending more time at a higher balance, therefore accruing more interest cost. Whereas with a second lien position HELOC, we're dealing with a smaller balance, and we're actually paying off the second lien HELOC more frequently. And when we do pay off the second lien HELOC, we're doing another $10,000 chunk. Therefore, it's spending roughly about the same time as the first lien HELOC scenario, but at a smaller balance, therefore accruing smaller amount of interest. And by accruing smaller amount of interest, we have more of our cash flow going towards reducing the principal of the HELOC, which therefore allows us to pay it off quickly and also save more money at the same time. On top of showing you this on our Excel spreadsheet calculator, I'm also going to show you using our new software, which uses a more sophisticated algorithm using AI to ultimately calculate the difference. So I have two scenarios here. Scenario number one is we're using the first lien position HELOC or an all-in-one loan, versus in scenario number two, I'm going to be using a second lien position HELOC. So when I click on the compare scenarios, you can see, again, the one on the left, right? Scenario number one is first lien. Scenario number two is second lien. So you can see right out of the gate, okay, start date is exactly the same, January 1st. Okay, the strategy type on scenario number one is first lien versus second lien on scenario number two. And you can see already $114,000 saved here, $160,000 saved on the second lien. Therefore, the second lien is going to fare better when it comes to the interest cost. And then same thing on the time savings. We're going to actually save a little bit more time on the second lien compared to the first lien. And we're actually going to pay off the mortgage sooner with the second lien versus the first lien. Now, just to give you some more context, this is paying off both the HELOC and the mortgage completely debt-free. So the second lien is going to almost always do better in almost all scenarios when it comes to paying off our mortgage faster and saving us cost when it comes to the interest as well. So this is my ultimate caution when it comes to getting a first lien position HELOC, especially if your goal is to save money and time. So if we're purely looking at what's going to save us most amount of money and time when comparing the first lien versus the second lien, the first lien position HELOC or the all-in-one loan, which is a version of a first lien position HELOC, it's not going to give you the most optimal result. Instead, I would suggest to go with a second lien position HELOC? When would it be more appropriate to choose a first lien position HELOC? Now, the number one thing is going to be convenience. If you prefer just to have one HELOC, one account that you need to worry about, and all you need to do is just send paychecks to it, cool. If you want to optimize the accelerated payoff strategy towards convenience and whatever you feel is going to be easier to apply, then the first lien HELOC might be a better fit for you if you want to maximize convenience. Another good reason why you might want to choose the first lien HELOC versus a second is that if you want access to equity when it comes to future investment opportunities, say you want to invest in real estate or you want to buy a rental property, then the first lien position HELOC may give you the equity pretty much right away as you pay down the mortgage, which in that type of scenario, yes, you're paying down your mortgage faster, saving money and time, but maybe your ultimate goal is to have liquidity, access to your equity to then deploy the capital to investment and opportunities down the road. And so the return on the investments that you make might just outweigh the cost of interest and the time when compared to a second lien position HELOC. But the argument there is that you can always start with the second lien position HELOC, and as you gain the equity down the road, you can always get a first lien position HELOC. And of course, your credit, your debt to income ratio, all that has to be good to go for you to be approved. But you could always start with the second lien position HELOC, which tends to be the easier way to start, and then later on switch to a first lien position HELOC as you have more equity on your property. Another good reason why you might want to start with the first lien HELOC is maybe you're buying a brand new home, and really at this point you have a decision of either just getting a mortgage and a first lien position HELOC, and if the interest rates are pretty much the same, then the first lien HELOC might make sense, because at that point, if the first lien position HELOC interest rate and a conventional 30-year mortgage interest rate is pretty much the same, and you're getting a brand new home, then yeah, at that point, it might be worth it to get the first lien position HELOC right out of the gate versus getting a mortgage and then getting a second lien position HELOC on top of that. But again, you may want to do some calculation to see what might fare better and what goal you want to optimize for long-term when it comes to your financial future. So speaking of calculation, if you want access to our free accelerated payoff calculator, I'll leave a link down below in the video description where you can get an access to our online version of the accelerated payoff calculator so that you don't need to use Excel, you don't need to bother opening a file. You can simply punch in your numbers, your income, expenses, your mortgage information, and you'll quickly be able to get an estimate of how much time and money you're able to save. And yes, it can calculate both first lien and second lien. So if you want to do some comparison, you're more than welcome to use our free tool to be able to do that. So the link is down below. Check it out and you'll be able to access it for free. So with that being said, friends, I hope that this video gave you some additional awareness and understanding when it comes to the first lien position HELOC or an all-in loan. I know sometimes that a lot of people talk about the first lien position HELOC or the all-in loan with lots of excitement, but I do want to give you a cautionary warning and give you as much information as possible to help you make sure that you're making a sound and well-informed decision, because again, if your goal at the end of the day is to save you as much money as possible and time, the first lien position HELOC in almost all cases will actually cost you more money and time when compared to a second lien position HELOC. But don't get me wrong, I'm not anti first lien position HELOC or I'm not anti all-in loan. I just want to make sure that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into, because I know a lot of time the excitement around certain financial products can blind us to other perspective and information that you need to have. So if you enjoyed this video, if you thought it was helpful, give us a thumbs up for the algorithm and leave your thoughts and questions down below. I'd be more than happy to answer them. And be sure to download the free calculator, the Accelerated Payoff Concept Calculator. We can punch in your own numbers and see how much time and money you could save. So with that said, I'll see you in the next video.